Hey guys, it's Bang for About PC Gaming here. So I've recently made the move from 4K down to 3440 by 1440. I've loved the experience so far, so much so I'm actually going to part with my 4K monitor. I originally upgraded to two GTX 1080s to push the massive 8.3 million pixels per second that 4K requires. Now that I'm down to 3440 by 1440, I need only push 5 million, which means that's a reduction of 40%, and it makes me question, do I really still need two GTX 1080s? So I'm gaming on my Acer XR34 2CK, loving the experience, and I think one GTX 1080 may be able to do the job. So that's what I'm going to do now, put it against some of the more demanding games that I own, and depending on how it performs, I may actually consider parting with one of my GTX 1080s before I consider upgrading in the future. So first up is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, one of my favourite games of all time. Looks amazing at 3440 by 1440, and this is at ultra settings as well, and a single overclocked GTX 1080 doing a fantastic job. The benchmark results I got for myself was 65 frames per second on average, and a minimum of 60, and this is in Novigrad, one of the most demanding areas in the game as well. So definitely a great job for a single GTX 1080, and you'll definitely get a great experience. Next up is Battlefield 1, again at the ultra preset at 3440 by 1440, and this game is absolute light work for the GTX 1080. I was actually pretty surprised by the performance I'm getting. I guess I've been using SLI for so long, I've underestimated what a single GTX 1080 can do. After the benchmark results, I did get an average of 87.7 frames per second and a minimum of 80, and this is on a 64 player Conquest multiplayer map as well. So awesome performance from a single GTX 1080, and definitely having no problems running this game. Next up is Rise of the Tomb Raider. Stunning game, very good game as well. Thoroughly enjoyed playing this at 3440 by 1440 with the very high settings, and HBAO plus as the ambient occlusion method, with FXAA as the anti-aliasing method. I was able to achieve an average of 82 frames per second. That's via the benchmark, but in the more demanding areas like the snowy levels like Soviet installation, you do average around 70 frames per second, but levels like this can go all the way up to 82. So great performance. Funnily enough, I didn't think I'd be able to maintain over 60, but again, me underestimating a single GTX 1080. Okay guys, moving on to The Division. This game, as you know, is pretty demanding. At a resolution of 3440 by 1440, a single GTX 1080 does do pretty well. I am using the ultra preset with the addition of object detail at 100% and reflection detail at ultra as well, and I was able to pull off an average of 67.7 frames per second, which I was pretty surprised. I thought I was going to get in the high 50s, but no. Single GTX 1080 doing a fabulous job, and The Division definitely more than playable at this resolution with a single card. Moving on to Gears of War 4, with the Ultra preset and at 3440 by 1440, a single overclocked GTX 1080 handles itself pretty well, averaging 81.6 frames per second. So you shouldn't have any problems playing this game as long as you're using the Ultra preset. There are two options you can increase to insane, but I wouldn't recommend it, as it has a massive performance hit and also doesn't really make the game look so much better either. So not to worry, if you're a Gears of War 4 fan, then this game is going to run perfectly well on a single GTX 1080 at Quad HD. Since we're on Microsoft Windows 10 games, I thought I'd throw in Forza Horizon 3, and with the recent update, performance is better than it's ever been. Now this is completely maxed out at 3440 by 1440, and as you can see, you'll easily get in 60 to 70 frames per second, and depending on where you are, you could easily exceed 80 as well. So you'll have no problems playing this game maxed out on a single GTX 1080. Next up is Watch Dogs 2, a very demanding game, both on the system and just generally hard to run. I'm playing this obviously at 3440 by 1440, this time with ultra settings, and the anti-aliasing method is FXAA, and I have to say this is probably the first game that the GTX 1080 wasn't able to achieve an average of 60 frames per second, such as the demand of performance from this game. So a single overclocked GTX 1080 was able to achieve 52 frames per second as an average, but it still plays pretty well. You can obviously tweak settings here and there if you really want to try and get that 60 frames, but I think it's a bit too much for a single GTX 1080. And what benchmarking suite of demanding games would be complete without Crysis 3? Now, I'm using the very high preset with 16 times anisotropic filtering, and the anti-aliasing method I'm using is FXAA. For a single overclocked GTX 1080, just barely averaging 60 frames per second. I actually got 60.96 frames per second and a minimum of 45, so definitely able to handle itself maxed out, but you may want to reduce some settings here and there if you're worried about not maintaining a steady 60 at all times. But it provides a great experience, and the GTX 1080 does a great job by itself. So that pretty much wraps up my performance test with a single GTX 1080 at 3440 by 1440 Quad HD. It has done quite a fantastic job. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I guess when you've been SLI for over 6 months, you do kind of underestimate the power of a single card, and I'm very happy with the performance actually. I would say that it can't obviously always max out and keep a steady 60 FPS on some of the more demanding games. You would need something a bit more powerful, maybe a Titan X or a GTX 1080 Ti, and possibly even one of the latest EVGA cards. We'll have to see how that performs when it releases, and that's due to be announced on the 31st of May, so stay tuned for that. I'll definitely be tuning in. And that's pretty much it, guys. This does raise some questions for me now. I may part with one of my GTX 1080s and just kick back for a while, have a look at how the market is before planning on upgrading again. But now that I've downgraded my monitor, it would make sense that I downgrade my performance as well for the time being, and make my move in the future. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.